tardes. Antes de nada decir que es un placer estar aquí y actuar como moderador de esta mesa redonda, en la que, como han comentado, el objetivo es mostrar ejemplos concretos de proyectos que se hayan aplicado dentro de Islas y que hayan aplicado con éxito estrategias de gestión y recursos que supongan mitigación de impacto ambiental. Como lo importante es la información que dé cada uno de los ponentes, voy a dar paso directamente al primer ponente, Luca Santarosa. Como han comentado, licenciado en Ciencias Políticas, tiene un claro enfoque hacia política internacional y posee un máster avanzado en gestión y planificación de áreas protegidas. Luca, cuando quieras.
¿Funciona? ¿Sí? ¿Me escucháis? Buenos días a todos. Digamos que yo hablo castellano cuando estoy un poco borracho y con los amigos. En un convenio científico prefiero hablar en inglés. Perdonadme. Good morning, everybody. I'm here substituting the official, let's say, project manager of the project Natur for Climate Change, meaning nature and tourism for climate change, whose lead partner is the Institute of Tourism of Croatia, and whose project manager is Mrs. Isidora Markovic, that she couldn't attend today. So I'm here. I'm a consultant for them, and I participated in the drafting of the project. The project, we are in the middle of this project, it started in January, and the focus is on impacts of climate change on coastal tourism. And the project work on two different layers, let's say. At the regional level, I mean, we engaged in the project some regions like Sardinia, for example, asking them to develop a specific strategy for mitigating and adapting to climate change. So reduction of emissions and adaptation of the whole tourist coastal destinations of the region towards climate change. There is a second layer made of pilots within each region. For example, also Andalusia region is involved, and Cabo de Gata is the pilot destination. At pilot destination level, we ask the region to help the pilot destination to set up a climate action task force, meaning a group, a committee of the different stakeholders, public and private, at local level, at tourist destination level, to draft a strategy just for adaptation, not for mitigation. But then we ask after this planning, let's say, to implement at least one solution, possibly a natural-based solution. I guess that most of us know, we already heard about during the day what is a nature-based solution, but in few words, if my problem is beach erosion, one nature-based solution can be planting Posidonia grass in the sea. So this is, in few words, let's say, the projects involving 6 countries, so France, Croatia, Italy, Greece, Spain, and Bosnia, and lasting for 2 years and a half, and implementing also the blueprint methodology, that we heard about today in the morning.
Okay. I want to make you a question about your project that I think is differential of the rest, and is concerning the wide topic of climate change adaptation. What is new in your project? The difference within another.
Yeah, in fact, many projects. Also here in these days, we are hearing about many projects dealing with climate change impacts and tourism. Let's say in our project, since let's say most of the partnership is coming from the environmental sector, conservationist sector, in our project we put a lot of emphasis on nature-based. Let's say, we say climate change is strongly linked with nature dynamic mechanism, okay? So we have to find in nature also the solution to this problem, sorry. On this, we added, since we are working in an economic sector, we are working on tourism. When we drafted the project, we said, okay, we are asking destinations to make efforts towards resilience. But how can we put value on these efforts? So there is a little part in the project that is marketing, so is training destinations, so training the the hotels, the transport system, those involved, let's say, in the pilot testing, in the pilot activities. We will do a specific marketing for them in order to how to sell the fact that my destination, like Cabo de Gata, no? Cabo de Gata is tourist destination, is making effort to become more resilient towards climate change. How to sell it? So how to find niches in the overall tourism demand that can appreciate this investment, let's say. So this, I could say, this is the innovative part.
Okay, thank you very much. Anastasios, you are a marine biologist, and you have a strong focus in ecosystem integrity, and you have a innovative way to mitigate the environmental impacts, no? Relation with the farming, no? Fish farming. Okay, and actually you are working to develop projects in different companies. Could you explain us your last project?
Yes. Hello, my name is Tassos. Thanks for having me. Particularly thanks for Mrs. Marta that we had the meeting and she invited me over here so I can be heard what we do. So I come from the island of Rhodes. It's an island in southern Greece. It's a heavily touristic island. That's why it's very up in the topic here with what we do with marine tourism. And my background is I'm a marine biologist and I have a background, a PhD on sustainable aquaculture, how we can mitigate the impacts of aquaculture. So I happen to work for 2 companies as a research and development officer for a fish farming company, which is small scale. We only produce, I don't know if you can appreciate the numbers, only 250 tons of fish a year. That's very small compared to other fish farms in Greece. But we also run a diving center. So what we do is because we're a small scale company, we need to find ways to diversify our product because 250 tons is not a lot in order to sustain a healthy industry, business. So we manage and merge these 2 activities together. We do marine biology guided tours next to fish farms, our fish farm. So what happens? Fish farms, particularly for the European Union standards, aquaculture and fish farming is a relatively very, very important industry in the marine sector. As long as we talk about blue economy, we need to acknowledge that, unfortunately, marine tourism is the one which is the leading and the leader in the blue economy. And we need to also acknowledge the fact that all the other industries need to go in line along with marine tourism. For instance, in Greece, 80% of the GPT on the blue economy is heavily on marine tourism. However, we have aquaculture. For example, in the European Union, because of the heavy regulations of fish farming and the social acceptance, 60% of the fish we eat within the European Union are imported by other countries, other continents. That's a big problem for food security. Same problem we experience now with the Russian-Ukrainian war. We rely on gas from Russia. War comes up, prices go up. We cannot really do anything. Therefore, it's high on the list of the European Union to increase aquaculture. However, we fight for space. And how can you do a fish farm in Rhodes where, as an island, it has a heavy touristic... No? See? So what we do is we take basically people on a boat. There is always a marine biologist on board. Most of the time there are students that they do the internships through the diving center. We go through the fish farms. Fish farms under right conditions, they are called aggregating devices. They have dolphins that they are there for various reasons because they find organic material and food. So they become lazy and they don't migrate. They stay right next to the fish farms. We have a lot of large schools of fish that are around. And we have also bluefin tuna that are also around. Mind you, a fish farm is indirectly marine protected area, a protected area because it's a private land. Not a big one, however, small. There we saw people, the dolphins, so they're all happy. And then we managed to sneak some information about aquaculture, why aquaculture is important, why is it needed. And it's really nice to see, because I don't come from a touristic background, but I really appreciate that people are very, very interested to what we have to tell them. They're really interested on why aquaculture is important, how dolphins interact, and also in a way we do a marine biology lecture on the field. It's like teaching customers on the very field. That's very important because effectively this summer we promoted aquaculture into 4,500 customers. And by bringing them over there to see with their own eyes how life aggregates, how beautiful the water is, how crystal clear the water is, and also learn things. So that's the project I'm working on. That's the companies I'm working on. It's not, I wouldn't say it's a project. I would argue it's a healthy business model. And this is a very good solution, we argue, generally for marine spatial planning in Europe. Because what we do effectively, we bring two activities who are inherently competing in the marine space together. That's a big problem for Greece. Greece doesn't have a marine spatial plan in place. We still pay fines. So we argue that this blueprint, let's say, can offer some suggestions of best practices to other small-scale fish farms. I wouldn't say that a big-scale fish farm would care to do tourism and aquaculture. Is normal. That's not their initial, purpose. However, for small-scale fishermen, in order to survive, I think that would be a very nice economic model.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Anastasios. Ioannis Mardikis, biologist, you are a specialist in environmental sustainability, and you work for the European Public Law Organization. Please explain your project to us.
Thank you very much. First of all, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Thank you very much for hosting me here. It's an honor. When it comes to sustainability and islands, we actually are running two important projects that are related with these two sectors. And one of them is called CO2 Pacman, which is an Interreg-Euromed project. And this is actually a continuance of previous projects like Blue Deal, like Compose, Compose Plus, another project which was called Citizen. So it's actually a capitalization of their results. The whole point is to understand the challenges and to tackle the challenges of decarbonization in islands. When we are speaking about islands, we have to understand three important variables. First of all, the population is not stable. I mean, you are witnessing, since you are an islander, you are witnessing the fact that the population has several peaks. And whenever we are about to discuss strategies, such, for example, a decarbonization strategy, we have to consider that also. It's a very important aspect. Because, for example, in Rethymno, it's a city of 57,000 inhabitants. It receives 570,000 tourists in August. You imagine that this actually creates a lot of issues. The second variable that we have to take into consideration is the fact that when a country has a national law and it's starting from approaches that are actually top-down, it is always, these approaches, they are always unsuccessful because they don't involve the local populations. It is very often, though, at least in my country, it's very often, for the wind farms in Crete, it was the country that actually decided to say where and how these establishments will be created, and the local population actually was totally against it. Apart from that, third, due to population restrictions, because the islands, unfortunately, they don't have this population to sustain, let's say, 50, 60, 70,000 people. Due to these restrictions, they are outside the EU mission for climate neutrality. So they are missing a lot of chances. So in Pacman, we take into consideration these kind of variables, and what we are actually doing is creating some very important elements that are missing. Visualization tools, first of all, of how these decarbonization elements will appear. For example, I'm giving you an example. If you say now to an islander that, listen, you will have wind farms in a lot of positions, in a lot of locations in your island, they will eat you alive. They will not let you do it. So what we are doing is actually we are organizing living labs with the local stakeholders and the citizens. And we are having high-end and innovative artificial intelligence tools presenting how these investments would appear in the sea. To give you an example, we are actually having a headset with VAR, and schools are coming in these living labs, and they're visualizing actually actively how this wind farm or a wind farm, marine wind farm, or a wind farm on the mountains will appear. And they understand also what decarbonization means. Apart from that, there are certain living labs that are organized with a certain framework and the methodology. And at the end of the project, there will be a very dedicated transition roadmap that will be delivered to the local authorities. To tell you the truth, we are very happy because the local authorities have embraced the whole idea. When it comes to the added value, it would be one question of yours, but I'm running quickly. The added value is not technology. The technology exists already. The thing that we are missing actually is the awareness, for sure, on what decarbonization means and why it is totally and urgently needed, and the press, the public press towards that direction. Because there isn't a push from the public, from the citizens towards that direction. They don't understand it, they don't care, it's very complicated, and they cannot give solutions about that. We are actually speaking about policies and how these things will actually improve the lives of the citizens. When it comes to tourism sector, and this is a very important aspect for the populations of the islands, tourism is one of their major occupations now. They are not cultivating the land anymore. They are not producing their own products. So there isn't any heavy other industry. The young generation wishes to open a cafe or a restaurant and survive with this. So we have to understand that it is an industry. This industry produces emissions. These emissions, for these emissions, there is no regulatory framework to say that, listen, you are going to do 1, 2, 3, or else you're going to have penalties. You're going to have a lot of, let's say, opportunities that you are going to be missing in funding, etc. So there isn't any regulatory framework to push towards that direction. So tourism is actually an emission-created industry that can really create a change, that really can be a pioneer on creating a change. Feel free to.
Okay, I would like to ask you, what do you think, how do you resume in a few words your project or the add value of your project? You have spoken about local. Yeah. I think it's very important to keep contact with the local to improve a project, but could you resume in a few words this?
Definitely, yes. I referred to tourism because I will refer now to our second project, which is a very important Interreg Euromed project, which is called Dialogue for Tourism. And it's totally linked with tourism and decarbonization efforts, sustainability efforts, because there are two elements, two very crucial elements for all these efforts to be successful. So the first, these two elements are called in recent literature the enabling conditions. These are two. There are a lot, but two are the most important. The first one is governance. We totally, even if the private sector wants to do a lot of things and we are missing governance, we can do nothing. And the second aspect is, which is kind of deriving from the first, is financial instruments and financial tools, toolkits, etc. So the second project that I'm referring to, Dialogue for Tourism, is actually doing this. It is reinforcing the systemic dialogue among policymakers in all the Euromed basin, We must understand that, as I told you before, we cannot work alone. We cannot work in silos. I mean, the governments cannot work alone. The policymakers cannot work alone. The private sector cannot work alone. We need vehicles of exchanges, networking, and speaking with each other. So this project has created, and it will last for 7 years, and it has created some policy labs in which important stakeholders will participate and they will exchange their ideas. We are running a network of sustainable tourism observatories also, in terms of data management, of IT, etc. And last but not least, there is a cross-network alliance which we are actually implementing, and it is a dialogue among all the programs together. All. For example, Interreg Euromed, Horizons Europe, Interreg Next, because there are gaps, and gaps of understanding, and gaps of priorities and philosophies in these projects. For example, the Horizons, they are aiming in innovation. Interreg is aiming in territorial cooperation. There is a very big field of collaboration, but this collaboration has to be established. Apart from that, there are policy papers, white papers that are produced by the project. So this second project is actually reinforcing the policy dialogue, which is missing. It's one of the aspects that is missing in the Med Basin.
Okay. Thank you very much. Carlos Orozco, ingeniero agrónomo, máster en agroindustrias y, como te han presentado, subsecretario de Desarrollo Turístico en el Ministerio de Turismo del Ecuador. Te agradecería que presentases tu proyecto.
Gracias. Bueno, para hablar de Galápagos hay que hacer un poquito de historia para entender el contexto de las islas. Las islas empezaron con un proceso de protección en la mitad del siglo anterior, en 1950. Es decir, que el proceso de conservación de las Islas Galápagos lleva aproximadamente 75 años ya en funcionamiento. A partir de eso, el turismo se convierte en una de las alternativas para monetizar la conservación en las islas. Es decir, el principal producto turístico de las Islas Galápagos es la conservación. Es decir, la conservación se ha convertido en un proceso en el que mostrar la diversidad que existe en las Islas Galápagos se convierte en un medio de vida para la población local. A partir de los años 1970, se realiza una consultoría y un estudio en el que se define un modelo de negocio turístico que ha sido exitoso hasta el día de hoy, que es el crucero navegable, el tour navegable. Hay tours navegables que te pueden durar 3 días, otros que te pueden durar hasta 15 días. Los precios tienen una gran variedad de rango, llegando hasta los $5,000 por noche, dependiendo del sitio. Pero todos estos elementos han permitido tener un marco de gestión que ha hecho que el turismo se convierta en el motor de desarrollo de la economía local y, por otro lado, un motor cierto de la conservación. Para el Ministerio de Turismo, las Islas Galápagos se convierte en el membrete y en la carátula de todo lo que es el turismo en el Ecuador. Es decir, cuando nosotros salimos a promocionar Galápagos, lo primero que decimos, Galápagos es parte de nuestro territorio, este es nuestro principal producto y alrededor de eso se gira la promoción del Ecuador internacionalmente. Es importante mencionar que en el caso de Galápagos tiene una población fija de alrededor de 28.500 personas. Y los no residentes que visitan las Islas Galápagos al año anterior, al año 2023, fueron de 325.000 personas. Es decir, hay un radio de más de 10 turistas por habitante, lo que muestra la complejidad de la gestión del territorio. Alrededor de eso, a finales de los años 70, las Islas Galápagos se convierte en uno de los primeros patrimonios naturales de la humanidad declarados por la UNESCO. Y ese fue un hito importante, porque a partir de eso se empieza un montón de política pública para la conservación de las islas. Esta declaratoria de Patrimonio Mundial de la Humanidad, Patrimonio Natural Mundial de la Humanidad, hace que tengamos monitoreos y auditorías frecuentes. Una de esas auditorías se da en el 2015. Y en el 2015, por primera vez, las Islas Galápagos entran a ser parte de los patrimonios en riesgo. Una noticia completamente desalentadora para el Ecuador. Y se empieza a generar un marco normativo que permite una gestión diferenciada del territorio en el caso ecuatoriano. Nosotros tenemos 24 provincias. Dentro de estas 24 provincias, Galápagos es una provincia. Sin embargo, tenemos 23 prefecturas y un gobierno especial de Galápagos. Es decir, en el caso de Galápagos, la autoridad que maneja la provincia es una autoridad designada por el presidente de la República, lo cual rompe de cierta manera los lazos políticos de la gestión, por decirlo de alguna manera. En el caso de Galápagos, luego de entrar en la lista de patrimonio en riesgo, se genera este marco normativo. Tradicionalmente, la UNESCO nos hace una advertencia. Para mantener el equilibrio sistémico de las islas, lo que nos sugirieron es un modelo de crecimiento cero de turismo. Y ahí viene el gran reto, porque el turismo, si es que tienes un producto turístico de altísima relevancia, lo más probable es que tengas cada vez más personas que quieran visitar las islas. Y pasamos del año 2010 de tener números redondos, 270,000 visitas, a tener las 300, casi 330,000 visitas para el año 2023. Es ahí donde, algo que se mencionó en su momento, alrededor de la participación de los ciudadanos locales, se empieza a construir un plan de regulación hotelera para detener el crecimiento de los alojamientos en Galápagos, como una medida para frenar el crecimiento de la demanda. Ese estudio tomó en cuenta 3 factores. El primero, un análisis ambiental, un análisis de carga, un análisis del impacto, de la capacidad del medio físico ambiental. Un segundo estudio que fue realizado por el Ministerio de Turismo respecto a los temas socioculturales de las islas, y un tercer elemento que fue un estudio de oferta. Queríamos saber cómo se estaba comportando la oferta de alojamiento en Galápagos. Alrededor de eso nos dimos cuenta de varias cosas. En primer lugar, desde la perspectiva ambiental, los primeros problemas que tienes cuando tienes un exceso de demanda es que empiezas a poner en riesgo la provisión de agua dulce, la generación o la suficiencia de la generación eléctrica en las islas y un manejo adecuado de los desechos sólidos. Por otro lado, nos dimos cuenta que a partir del 2019 y 2020, derivado de la pandemia, muchos ciudadanos locales empezaron a integrarse al sistema de alojamiento en las plataformas que vendían espacios en departamentos o dormitorios. La ley prohibía el crecimiento de la infraestructura, sin embargo empezamos a ver un nuevo elemento de alojamiento, un nuevo sector de alojamiento que empezaba a crecer y que no estaba regulado. Alrededor de eso, nosotros como Ministerio de Turismo lideramos más de 100 reuniones con la sociedad civil, evidentemente con una variedad de intereses inmenso. Por un lado, el interés de la academia y del sector conservacionista, que quería evitar a toda costa el crecimiento del sector turístico. Un segundo interesado era el sector turístico formal, que ellos sí deseaban y están ansiosos de tener un incremento en la capacidad hotelera, porque eso les permitiría tener un mayor retorno de sus inversiones. Y un tercer sector, que es un sector informal de la economía del turismo, ligado a los bienes inmuebles de rentas cortas, que buscan una legalización. El plan de regulación hotelero fue aprobado en marzo de este año, y lo que hace es da un marco de planificación que orienta el crecimiento turístico de las islas, y alrededor de eso se determinan varias actividades. Uno, para determinar la capacidad real de las islas y permitir o no el incremento de la capacidad hotelera. Y asimismo una serie de análisis que permitirán establecer alrededor de la autoridad local cuál es la pertinencia de incrementar. Evidentemente el peso político que tiene la autoridad es inmenso, porque uno tiene que enfrentar los distintos intereses, pero pesar con mayor intensidad la necesidad de conservación de las islas. Es un elemento de planificación territorial muy complejo. Sin embargo, esperamos que alrededor de este trabajo nosotros podamos demostrar la capacidad que tiene el turismo para ser un motor de desarrollo económico, pero también un motor que incentiva la conservación y la preservación de este patrimonio natural.
Muy interesante, Carlos. Muchas gracias. Ahora tenemos 10 minutos para hacer alguna pregunta, si la tenéis, y si no, yo creo que habría un… Bueno, si alguien tiene una pregunta, la lanzamos, y si no, yo quería proponer un pequeño debate. El debate es si creéis que es, if you think that it's possible to serve economic development and conservation in an island or in a special area. So if you can answer to it.
Mi respuesta es súper corta, y mi respuesta es sí. Galápagos es un ejemplo de eso.
Okay. Please, Tassos.
Please.
Answering to your question, we see that not only it's a healthy business model in order to mix conservation with economic growth, but that's the essence of sustainable growth. That's what sustainable growth means. And we see from our experience, small experience, empirical evidence, that this is what people want to see nowadays. It's not that it automatically goes well, because that's what the people want, especially when they visit the place. So I think, yes, they're interlinked, and as the time passes by, that's going to be the only way forward.
Okay, thank you. Yanis?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Please.
No, prego.
Please.
Please. Okay. Let's say I have to answer in my official role of, let's say, representative of a project, blah, blah. Then I will answer as I would say, scientist of scientists. I'm a more practitioner, but I work on tourism since many years. I move immediately to the second role, let's say, because the first role would repeat what also my friend said. As an expert of tourism, especially in coastal context, I would say two things. The first one is when I make lectures, when I make training on tourism, on tourism economy, I started saying tourism is like mining. The main impact of this activity is to erode, to diminish the attractive point of one thing. If we go in a beach, and we are a lot, we damage the attractiveness of the beach. And the second point is that tourism is a very, let's say, elastic economic activity. What does it mean, elastic? That respond immediately to different factors that can change. Weather change the flows. Wars in one area change the flows to another area. Social, economic condition, if there is a high rate of inflation in one country, this country decrease his contribution to tourism. So it is something difficult to plan. This is from an economic point of view. But also from conservation, as I said, mining activity. So let's say we are talking since 40 years, since Rio de Janeiro, how to find a balance between tourism and conservation. If I look at tourism in coastal areas in Mediterranean, I see many problems. Many problems caused also from other sectors. For example, demographic dynamics towards coastal. So I don't repeat things that you know. So at the end, let's say I try to make ecotourism in parks, in protected areas. I understood three things. First of all, we must fix a limit. So we have to say to entrepreneurs, to local citizens, to local community, blah, blah, okay, we can develop the tourism, but until a certain limit, threshold. And then we decide stop, we stop. This is the first stupid thing, let's say. The second is a trade-off between quantity and, I would say, satisfaction. Meaning, I can work to have a lot of people paying whatever price, but the satisfaction of me as local community, as a local service provider, blah, 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 will be low. If I do a lot of work, a lot of effort to look for another target, that means less people, more rentable, but especially more satisfaction in my work. This is a long-term goal, but at the end, create another model. I'm talking about how to change the pattern, no? The model of tourism. And last, I'm an economist, but I usually work with biologists, zoologists, blah, blah, no? And the point is that also the regulation recently adopted by the European Commission, no? Always we have two approaches. One is, I want to safeguard this room, and then the rest of the building, I don't care. Or, I'm exaggerating, of course. Or the opposite, as was made by Denmark in the 70s. We don't create parks because we want to influence land use planning with sustainability principles. So my point is, coastal tourism in Mediterranean coastlands, if we think it related to conservation, we can't say that we can't be very ambitious in terms of conservation. We must accept a contaminated environment. We must accept a lower level of quality, good environmental status, quality, blah, blah, etc., etc. Also because the Mediterranean is an area of tourism since 2 millennia, maybe, you know. So also this discussion is among people from Mediterranean, but if we speak with Americans, they don't understand the discussion, no? Because they have in mind wildlife, wild nature, etc. So we must accept that conservation in the Mediterranean context has another meaning than the one that you studied maybe at university. So it's, I would say, contamination. Well, I don't know exactly the word, but you got my point, I guess.
Okay. Ioannis?
Yes, please. I will catch up actually from the part that you say tourism is like mining. Of course it is. It is a heavy industry. It has a lot of emissions. It has a lot of population that is coming, going, producing emission constantly, changing the habits of the socio-economic and cultural status of the insular, because we're speaking about islands, insular population.
And the identity of a local community. So.
Yeah. The identity of the local community is lost. And we, the new generations, we are seeking actually for the old things that were happening, and we cannot trace them back in any references. So it is an industry. I hope that this industry will be kind of really involved. It is involved, but it has to be really involved, and the big players of the industry have to be really involved in order to create another path. The strategies, the initiatives from the European Union, from the scientists, from the policymakers, they exist. We need tangible results. We need the private sector to understand that they will gain more profit after a long period of investment, patience, because the competitor will have another type of air condition, will not have solars, blah, blah, blah. But they have to stick to the plan. They have to understand that this have to be their mission, because otherwise, since the resilience of the sector is so important and it's very vulnerable, if a destination no longer has its natural beauty or cultural beauty, it will no longer have clients. And I don't know if I have 2 minutes.
Okay.
I really admired a very young person, 30-something, in Greece that created in an old vineyard by the sea, very industrial. I mean, it was by the sea, it was with no regulation back at the time. They actually transformed it into a fully sustainable hotel, placing on their efforts all the elements of circular economy, recycling, how this product can be catching these people that are interested, fashion with sustainable clothing, art that is actually in this hotel. So I really admired them, because at the end they said, listen, I'm making far more profit from it, although it took me at least 6 years to fight with that.
Okay.
So this is the spirit that we need. That's why I spoke about a push, I mean, a bottom-up approach. Because top-down, you cannot achieve it.
But
We only have 1 minute.
see, so of course I fully agree on this, but the point is that the tourism sector in the Mediterranean mainly is made by lead entrepreneur. Okay, most of the offer is made by lead entrepreneur. A lead entrepreneur looks for the immediate revenue. This kind of investment is difficult for them. I'm against the fact that big corporation comes and buy all the hotels. And I'm against this. I'm saying that the public sector must help
Definitely.
the little entrepreneurs to think about in the long term, no?
Governance and financial tools, of course. These 2 elements, they have to assist the
We have 8 minutes plus, so we can continue with the speech. Okay.
ok.
Perfecto, ahí estamos. Esto va a estar bueno
¿Cómo es en
entonces.
Ecuador esta historia?
Bueno, y justo iba a tratar algo que se había mencionado por parte de los 2 panelistas. Ese cambio de pensamiento en el caso ecuatoriano se vio a mediados del siglo anterior. Y voy a decir algo que espero no suene políticamente incorrecto, pero una ventaja que hubo es que un grupo de excéntricos europeos colonizó las islas a mitad del siglo anterior, y ellos tuvieron la necesidad de decidir cuál va a ser el desarrollo de las islas. Me voy a convertir en un paraíso fiscal, estoy suficientemente lejos del territorio para hacerlo, o me convierto en un espacio de conservación relevante para el planeta, alrededor de toda la historia de Charles Darwin y la historia de la evolución, etcétera, etcétera, etcétera. Entonces, ese grupo de personas europeas que colonizaron en un principio las islas Galápagos tuvieron el cambio de visión a muy temprana edad. Ahora estamos enfrentando la llegada de una visión que tiene una necesidad económica mucho más fuerte. Entonces ahora tenemos que contener esa visión desde la política pública. Ahora la política pública tiene que convertirse en una herramienta para la conservación sin descuidar el desarrollo económico de la gente. Y voy a dar un par de datos que quiero que reflejen lo que estoy mencionando. El Parque Nacional Galápagos es uno de los 10 parques nacionales más grandes del mundo en territorio, pero tiene muy poquitos espacios de visita. Es decir, las Islas Galápagos, si bien es un territorio amplio, los puntos de visita son muy limitados, lo que te permite trabajar en los procesos de conservación sin generar mayor impacto en la mayor parte del territorio. Y el turismo en las islas significa el 65% de la actividad económica. Entonces, conservar el ecosistema implica cuidar el negocio a largo plazo. Y esa es la razón por la que las Islas Galápagos al momento creo que sigue siendo un ejemplo de conservación y desarrollo.
Muy bien. Do you have something else to add to this? Tassos?
I just wanted to ask you,
Okay.
do you think that one of the biggest issues we have so far is that we cannot put a value on ecosystem services yet? For instance, in order to protect something and save from because you have much more experience from the economic.
Let's say I work with WWF, etc. So there is a long story about how to give a specific monetary value to ecosystem services. In some sectors like water
Usage?
Production, it's easier to determine the ecosystem services. For tourism, it's difficult. For example, this beach, if in 20 years the beach will be eroded, you can set up big swimming pools instead of the beach. You can set up a big thematic park. So tourism is something more
Complex.
It's much more
complex, but also like the chameleon, it changes a lot. No, so to determine again the weight of a good status of environment for tourism is less clear than other sectors.
I'm just thinking if it was the other way around, for tourism to grow in certain areas, if you manage to value the ecosystems and the services these ecosystems provide, let's say, how much value has a hectare of Posidonia, healthy Posidonia oceanica? Carbon sequestration.
From which point of view?
From the conservation part of view. From
exactly.
The
for this it's clear, but from tourist point of view, if I don't have Posidonia, I put some rocks on the sea.
Well, that's true. That's true. But I'm talking in terms of, as you said before, you mentioned really well, everything has to do with carrying capacity. Tourism is not supposed to grow forever. That's the problem that we have, for instance, in Rhodos and in other places. We don't have proper carrying capacity studies. Well, actually, probably we do have, but they are not incorporated into legislation and actual, let's say, protocols that we need to follow.
Yeah. When making carrying capacity, you as marine biology, you must accept that me as economist, I say, let's allow 1,000 people instead of 100 people.
Well, that's the
it is let's say, a compromise.
Yes.
No?
And let's go back to the governance. Who is going to take the decision in a small island where everybody knows everybody? They have grown up together. And he will tell him, listen, you will stop building this in your land, over, first of all. And second, you will have penalties or fines if you do. I mean, who is going to take these decisions and who is going to say, for example, we have very important study for Balos Beach. Who is going to say to the tourists, stop, don't come here? They don't do it because they think that they will lose revenue.
Because
they think they will lose.
I repeat, tourism started in Mediterranean before conservation. Tourism started 2,000 years ago, conservation one century ago.
En el caso de Galápagos, lo que acaba de mencionar es completamente cierto. Las poblaciones son tan pequeñas que, o sea, el primo, el hermano, el papá, el tío, el sobrino va a ser alcalde alguna vez de una de las islas. Y esa fue una de las razones por las que se cambia el modelo político en Galápagos. La principal autoridad de Galápagos no es de elección popular. La principal autoridad de Galápagos es puesta por el presidente de la República con un cargo de ministro, que es el que administra y gestiona el territorio.
Comisario.
Entonces, si bien la parte política de la gestión de las islas resulta complicado por las razones que tú estás mencionando, de cierta manera quien ha tomado el rol de las decisiones importantes es el gobierno central.
Bueno, yo creo que como resumen, creo que es un debate bastante interesante. todos los presentes aquí vivimos en Grecia, Italia, Ecuador. Todos nuestros países son países que tienen una actividad económica basada en el turismo muy importante y sin duda debemos llevar a cabo tareas de protección para garantizar en el futuro que podamos seguir disfrutando de ese turismo que es motor de la economía local. I just want to thank you for presenting this Congress and hope you have enjoyed this speech. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ignacio.
Thank you very much.